our so Felix Sim is the founder of today's company, and he's in Singapore. And if my calculations are correct, Singapore is 12 hours ahead of us, so it must be 11 p.m. in your time zone, isn't it? Oh, your microphone is not up. So I think I have Singapore somewhere in my, but yeah, it's a late hour, so we definitely don't want to push it too late. So, but anyway, today we have an introduction of a new company. So the company participates for the first time, but not a new speaker. So Felix is a serial entrepreneur, and so he started a bunch of companies, and he participated with Get Out Events company 2-3 times in a row. So that company operates in a different industry. It organizes corporate events. And so I really wanted that company to participate again this semester because COVID messed up the whole industry there, and Felix pivoted from face-to-face events to online events. And I really wanted to learn more about it, but now he has a new venture, and that one is even cooler. And so we thought, okay, let's focus on this one. And so I'm not even sure if I can properly describe the industry. So it's something that has to do with video gaming, crypto, non-real goods, and like all kinds of stuff. So it's like blockchain and it's video games, like it's all the coolest, newest technologies came together in one company. And so pretty much all of that didn't even exist like a few years ago. Like not only it's a new company, but the whole industry is literally just a few years old. And so I'm very eager to learn more about the company. We did meet with Felix for about an hour, and he talked about the company a little bit. So I know something, but I'm still, very uninformed about the industry as a whole. And so we will do the introduction today. And so assisting me here is Ken and Dhruv. So Felix, so that we have a group of coaches who will be helping students throughout the project. And so we assigned a few coaches to each of the companies so that we don't bother you, a busy company founder and CEO, with every question the students have. So we will have a couple of coaches who essentially will be your assistants and representatives here. But occasionally, obviously, there will be questions that they do not know how to answer. So that's when they will come to you. But otherwise, hopefully, it will save you time and provide better experience for the students. And then obviously our guest, Mr. Felix Sim of Singapore, with his company that has also a very interesting name, Salad Ventures. And I kind of suspect it has something to do with virtual money, because I guess in English they call dollars the greens. But I don't know how salad has what it has to do with crypto and blockchain and video games. So maybe that's what you can start with explaining to us, because the name is a little bit different from what you would expect from an IT cyberspace company.
Okay, great. Well, firstly, thanks for having me back again, Vas. I think this is probably the third time I think that we're participating. So we participated, as you correctly pointed out, with my other business, Get Out Events, which initially was a traditional corporate events company, and then obviously COVID hit, and then we pivoted to a virtual events business or virtual events company. Unfortunately, I just don't have enough time in a day to come back with two companies this time. So I thought, it was I am obviously quite excited to update you on the progress of the virtual events business. Just in a nutshell, we've done a lot better than I thought we would, and we're really very busy. And me of all people decide then to start a new business in the middle of a pandemic, running an events company. So in any case, so this new business that I am submitting for X-Culture this semester or this term is called Salad Ventures. Now, salad doesn't really mean anything. The reason why I call it Salad Ventures was because when I used the game competitively, I'd say 15, 16 years ago, the nickname that I used in the game was Crazy Salad. So I just stuck to the word salad. That's it. Everybody thought that there was some mystical reason behind it. There isn't. I was just too lazy and too busy to think of a different name. And then, as all naming of companies go, you start with something thinking that it would be it's sort of like a working name, and then it just sticks. And people just start to wonder what Salad Ventures actually does. And then it's a conversation opener, and that's typically how I like to name my businesses, because we get to talk about it. So coming back to what Salad Ventures actually does, of course, in general, if I had to describe or put us in an industry, Salad Ventures is very heavily biased towards the blockchain / cryptocurrency, primarily cryptocurrency industry. And if I had to sort of overgeneralize it a little bit more, I would say that we sort of intersect with the gaming industry as well. Primarily, Salad Ventures can be seen as a sort of like a professional gaming team, professional gaming esports kind of company. If I had to sort of describe it simplistically, and typically esports businesses make money by hiring professional players, giving them training, and then sending them out to competitions with the prize money. If they win huge prize money in games like CSGO or Counter-Strike Go or Dota, which is probably the world's most profitable professional esport game. So they win millions of dollars when they participate and win these competitions. In our case, and if they don't, then they don't get anything. The problem with the traditional esports business is also the revenue source, because as you can obviously appreciate, running an organization such as an esports company or an organization like Xculture requires a lot of resources, and resources primarily cost money. So similar to a non-profit organization, typical esports companies or esports competitive teams tend to depend on sponsors, which is why you tend to see a lot of jerseys, a lot of logos. That's sort of their primary revenue source. To keep the team going, to pay a little bit here and there, to give allowances to professional players, and hopefully their team wins something in the competitions. Now, if you look at the competitions again, the prize money from competitions are also primarily donated by sponsors. So there are team sponsors and there are also competition sponsors. So that's how sort of the traditional esports gaming companies or businesses or teams make money. That's sort of their business model. For Salad, I think in terms of the operation, it's very similar. But in terms of the revenue model, it is extremely different. In terms of the potential scalability, obviously it's also significantly larger, and I'll explain a little bit more on these 2 points. Firstly, in terms of the day-to-day operation, if we compare us to a traditional professional esports team, we don't have a specific loyalty to a specific game. Typically, esports team set themselves up for 1 or 2 specific games, and then they sort of just focus on that and train their players on that, because when they win, the prize money is 15, 20, 30 million dollars. It's big risk, big returns. In our case, the games that we play or we get ourselves involved in are only blockchain games, or games that are programmed and hosted and operated on the blockchain, primarily the Ethereum blockchain. So I don't want to make this into a technical session, because again, I'm not the most technical person around, but the reason why we've picked blockchain games as opposed to traditional games is because there are typically every single blockchain game has a cryptocurrency tagged to that game. So imagine if you were playing a game like StarCraft or Dota or MapleStory. You play the game, you win enough games, you get some points, or you get some gold in-game tokens or in-game score, or you win some, or you get some items, like this magical pencil or something like that, which then allows you to win more games. And the way players used to monetize playing these games is they tend to take their items and then they go to, let's say, eBay, they put it up for sale. Somebody purchases the item with, let's say $50 US. they then transfer that item to the buyer, whom they sort of interact on a separate platform, in this case that I've described, eBay. For blockchain games, you don't need to do that, because when you play the game, you get rewarded sometimes with some in-game items, like again a magical pencil, which then allows you to win more games. But the ultimate goal for blockchain gamers is to win more in-game tokens, also known as a form of cryptocurrency. So in our case, we've sort of barely just started for about 4 months now. So the game that we started with, or the first game that we sort of are putting both our feet in today, is this game called Axie Infinity. One of the sort of the most, I guess, famous investors who invested in this game called Axie Infinity is Mark Cuban, obviously from the Shark Tank and owner of the Mavericks. Axie Infinity was created by this team called Sky Mavis, based out of Vietnam. So there is no specific reason why we picked Axie Infinity to start Salad Ventures with. Primarily, I thought that, you know, if we were going to invest our resources, our money, our time, our energy into a game, that first game has got to survive. It can't just shut down after 6 months or 1 year. And that's usually what happens with a lot of games, right? I mean, games start in 3 months, it's gone. Flappy Bird started in 4 months, it's gone. Also a Vietnamese company. So games come and go. Blockchain games, exactly the same. I decided to bet on Axie Infinity because there were very big name investors who backed this company called Sky Mavis. So that's the reason why we sort of pick this. Now, how do we pick our players, and how is this different from a traditional esports company? Axie Infinity has grown a lot. What I did in my document was I shared a link to a YouTube documentary video that's probably about just under 30 minutes. I would suggest for all students who are interested in this project, in our project, to watch that 30-minute YouTube video. You will completely understand the entire business model. In a nutshell, I decided also that I don't want this to be primarily profit driven. I wanted to create a business, unlike the previous one. I wanted to create a business that is hugely scalable, but at the same time, a business for good. And it just so happens that this game, Axie Infinity, has picked up like crazy in the Philippines. So don't quote me on today's numbers, but in general, Axie Infinity probably has about 1 million, just over 1 million daily active users, i.e. 1 million different players play this game every single day.
Just curious for myself. So you said all of a sudden it picked up in the Philippines. So you really don't know why? Like, is there any explanation, any hypotheses? I mean, is it just coincidence? There must be something about the Philippines.
Yeah. A theory is a theory that I have, which can probably be Googled, I think, is because the very first company that started this business model is this company called YGG. The long form of YGG stands for Yield Guild Games. Very similar. In fact, we are very similar to YGG, but we are nothing compared to the size that they are today. YGG has a co-founder who is Filipino, and they are probably the first to start sort of this business model, obviously based out of the Philippines. And I think they did really well and marketed the game very well there as well. That's why Philippines became super popular. Filipinos loved the game so much. Now, so the business works this way. How we pick scholars? So we pick scholars out of the Philippines simply because there's just so many Filipinos who already understand the game and sort of know the basics of the game. So it's easier for us to onboard them and train them. Another reason is because the average salary in Philippines is obviously very, very low, but at the same time, their command of the English language and their IQ is really, really high. So we thought, why not see if we could sort of partially model what this other company in YGG is doing. Just start off from where they have found success, and try there, but change a few things along the way, obviously. So the difference between our model and, let's say, YGG's model is they tend to sort of do a profit share with the players that they onboard into their team. But just one very, very important point to note: in order to play this game called Axie Infinity, you need to invest cash to buy the game. You need to invest money to start a team, to buy a team before you can start playing. So if you don't have an account right now, you obviously can, just go to the App Store or go to the website, download the app onto your computer, onto your laptop. You can download the app, no problem. You can create an account, absolutely no problem, but can't play. And you cannot play because you don't have these little creatures that they call Axies. They're like Pokemons. So every team needs to be set up with 3 Axies before you can start playing to earn. Yeah. But these Axies probably cost about $600 to $700 today, probably even more, considering that Ethereum has, out of no reason, popped up again. So a team of Axies.
Very expensive entry. So because normally video games, you just buy the game or even start for free, right? So, but here, okay, interesting.
Yeah. So you need to invest a very significant sum of money before you can start playing the game. Obviously, most regular people in the Philippines cannot invest $5,000 $6,000 into a game. Obviously, you can start with a cheaper team, a weaker team, but then that won't allow you to then earn the target tokens called SLP that you wish to earn in order to make money. So that's where companies or teams like us sort of come in. We would invest obviously our own money to purchase these teams. We then rent these teams to our players, also known as scholars. So in your research, if you look for Axie Infinity players, you would probably not get a lot of information about the entire business model. But if you look for Axie Infinity scholars, somehow that's what they are called. So they're not called players; they're called scholars. So what we do is we purchase these Axies, we set them up into the correct teams. We then go out and we search for potential scholars. We then put them through an interview process. We make them take an IQ test, and we make them take also a personality test online. And if they meet our minimum targets for IQ as well as for personality, we then invite them onto our server. So we have a chat server on this platform called Discord, which is used pretty much by all the gamers around the world. So we have our own Salad Ventures Discord channel, which link I have also included in my document. So when somebody tries to join, they'd have to be invited. Our HR, my HR staff will then check that this individual has actually completed the test and have passed and have given us the results that we need before they allow them in. So as you can see, our process is quite gated right from the get-go. So it's not anybody who wishes to sort of join us and be a scholar and come and use our teams. We allow. We don't. We literally just gate them straight up, and only if they pass through our hoops, then will they be allowed to join. Just to push the context of this, in order for them to complete an IQ test, we just use IQ-test.com or something, and we use that for 4 or 5 months now. It takes probably about 45 minutes to complete an that IQ test, and then it further takes them another 45 minutes to complete a personality test, the one that I selected. So in order for them to just put in an application, it takes them about an hour and a half. Most people would just drop out then, which is good, because if you can't be bothered to complete this to apply for a scholarship, which is entirely free, then you don't deserve to be in. So we put a lot of hoops up front, because my strategy is very different from the likes of YGG and all the other scholarship programs around the world. The reason why is because, quite obviously, it's very expensive to put an Axie team together, and we also need to have a decent return on investment for each and every team. So once they're in, we put them through a 6 days training program where my co-founder will train. So I have a co-founder, and his name is Wesley, also listed in our document. the way we split unlike our events business where I was basically managing everything at Salad Ventures, Wesley manages all the aspects of the game, whereas I manage everything else. So we'll then put them through a 6-day training program on Zoom with Wesley, where he would initially bring them through the basics of the game and then start teaching them very specific strategies on how to win games in order to win SLP tokens. Then in terms of remuneration, most other scholarship programs, I would say, do a profit share with the scholar. For example, if the scholar is able to generate 100 SLP tokens today, they might do a 60-40 split or a 30-70 or a 50-50 split with the scholar. And they set very, very low minimums in order for the scholar to continue with that organization. A very big difference that I have sort of put down is I thought that, if we take this very seriously, and we want Salad Ventures to be not an ATM machine but a life-changing machine, then why shouldn't we treat this scholarship program as an actual job, where as a company, we take the risk, we pay a fixed salary in US dollars, converted to pesos, obviously, per week. And we give them a basic KPI of, let's say, 200 SLPs per day that they need to meet in order to keep their job. And then we as an organization then take all the risk. Because the key difference here is that if you run a scholarship program like this and you do profit share with your scholars, you, as much as your scholars, are both exposed to the fluctuations of the price of SLP. When I started, one SLP token was worth 11 cents. It then went up to 14 cents. And then the highest probably went up to, I don't know, like almost 30 cents. And 2 weeks ago, it dropped to 11 cents, 10 cents. Today, it went back up to 14 cents. So you can imagine the volatility. So I thought, as an organization, I want to have exposure to cryptocurrency. So I'm very happy to take the exposure. And if we have to hedge, we'll do the necessary. In this case, we don't. But I don't think that a scholar from the Philippines who sort of wants a job and wants to change their life, willing to work hard, should be taking this type of exposure. So what we do is currently we pay $87.50 per week. That is $350 US per month to our Filipino scholars, as long as they hit our basic target of 200 SLPs per day. If they don't, we give them a warning. And if they accumulate 2 or more warnings in a week, by the end of the week, we still give them a third opportunity to redeem themselves if, as a whole, the entire week they deliver 1,400 SLP, so still 200 a day. The reason we've come up with these sort of formulas is because, firstly, we want it to be fair to them. Some days are better than others, but overall, in 7 days, if you're not able to hit the targets, then we can't afford to keep you here. Now, on the other hand, we also think, at least if this scholar knows that every Sunday, all he needs to do is do his job, which is play this game called Axie Infinity for about 3 to 4 hours per day, and have the rest of the day off, they know that they are going to be paid $87.50 every week, which makes up to $350 US per month. Again, average salary in Metro Manila, let's say it's 250 USD, but in order for somebody to earn $250 per month, this individual probably needs to work in obviously an office or a factory that they have to travel to at least an hour or an hour and a half each way. They, of course, have expenses outside. They've got to not only pay travel costs, they got to pay food, they got to, they probably hang out after work, they spend a lot of their money, and they have to do this probably 6 days a week for 12 hours a day. Compared to what we're offering them, about 50% more than what they are currently drawing. Work from home, 3 to 4 hours a day, if you obviously are good at the game, and then the rest of your day is off, you get paid more. So we thought this changes a lot of lives, right? Because of the pandemic, because of COVID, many people don't want to go out. Many of them have lost their jobs. But again, coming back to the very first thing that I said, Filipinos are very smart. They have a very good command of English, which means they can understand when we train and when we teach. And they are also very loyal people, which also means that if we give them a good life, or if we change their lives just by allowing them to play a game, they would do the same back for us, i.e. they would change our lives. So our profitability is simply the amount that we pay them, or the amount that they generate in US dollar terms minus the amount that we pay them every single week. Yeah. So for example, if they generate, let's say 1,400 SLPs per week, 200 a day, and SLP is now 14 cents. Our revenue in today's prices is $196 per week per scholar. We pay them $87.50. So we gross $108.50 per scholar per week. That's how we make money. If SLP prices go up, because we are the only ones with the exposure, then we make even more money. If SLP prices go down, then obviously we make less money. So we can adjust our economics by either adjusting the salary for future batches. So the way we do it is we have a weekly onboarding. So today, or as of yesterday, we have onboarded batch 8. We currently have just about 100 scholars, and there's probably about 15 or 20 who have left us. So I want to say we've onboarded about 120, 124 scholars in total, and probably 20 or so have left us. 100 are still with us today. So that's how we that's the whole plan. When we make the SLP, or when we make our profit, our gross profit, obviously we don't cash out the profit unless we want to. What we then do is that we reinvest it back into the game to either buy more axes so that we can launch more games, launch more teams for the following week, or 2, we can also use the earnings to breed more Axie. So there are 2 ways to form Axie teams. 1, you can go to the Axie Infinity Marketplace, which is a website, to purchase the Axies that you want, and then you form your own teams. Or 2, we can breed the Axies that are currently in our portfolio to form more Axies. There is a cost of breeding, and the currency is SLP. So again, the in-game currency, the in-game token is called SLP. And this SLP, the main difference between a blockchain game and a traditional game is you can literally just send SLP to Binance and cash out to US dollars or to pesos if you want to from there. Whereas if you play the game like MapleStory, whatever you earn there, you can't cash out anywhere. You just need to sell your items on an eBay or to your friend or something, and then he transfers you the money. It's completely different. So very, very basically, that's what we currently do. What we're looking to do, which would sort of form the bulk of the challenge, are actually a lot of things. I've sort of thought, or put it into, I would say, 3 different categories or 3 different sectors. The first category is operations. There is a lot of work to do. To finding the right scholars. Are we doing the right tests? Do IQ tests make sense? Do personality tests make sense? Are we onboarding them the correct way? And then after that, as we are managing them, whatever we are doing here, does it make sense? Is it the most optimized? Is it the most systemized? Can it be better? Because right now we have 100 scholars. By this time next year, we'll have 1,000 scholars. Does this system still work? Does this process still work? So operationally, there are a lot of challenges that I've listed in the challenge document. The second is risk management. So should we be having so much exposure to this in-game currency called SLP? If not, then how do we hedge it? Should we hedge it? Should we change the payment method? Should we change our payment mode? Should we just follow what the other scholarships are doing and just do a profit share? But then how would that then affect our operations? Will our scholars see us as their employees, or will they see us as partners? What is the downside to those things? So then there's a lot of human behavior that comes into that first bubble that I've described, right? Which then obviously is also interconnected to our decisions in risk management. And then the third, of course, is scalability, which is the favorite S word at X Culture. There are many, many ways we can scale the business. YGG is currently the biggest in the world. They invest, I think, in 4 different blockchain games, Axie Infinity being one of them. YGG has probably raised, I don't know, about $15 million in venture funding. They have also launched their own cryptocurrency token called YGG, which sold out in, I think, 4 to 5 hours and raised another $12.5 million. Currently, the market cap of the YGG token is $600 million. YGG in Axie Infinity currently manages over 4,500 scholars. So they are indeed sort of a benchmark that we should be looking at when we talk about scale. The good thing is that there's a precedent there, and we're still very fresh, it's still very young. It's quite a straightforward route to say, okay, so YGG is right here. Salad Ventures is tiny, we're nothing now, but there are a lot of steps that we can take in order to get there. For example, we are currently also talking to VCs in the US who are interested in investing in Salad Ventures because of the way we operate our business. So we are very, very good operators. We are not speculators. We are not cryptocurrency investors. We know how to hire people, we know how to manage them, and we know how to fire them. So management includes motivation, includes training, includes everything you learn in HR, basically. So you do that. In terms of scaling, we're going to raise some money from some VCs, and then we're going to launch our own token, obviously called Sell It. So there are steps that can be taken for us to get there. What are those steps? What should we be thinking of when we, let's say, do a private raise, when we do a private token sale, when we do a public token sale? How should we do any lockup? Should we do any cliffs? It's basically all that cryptocurrency jargon would then all come up when we talk about scaling. So that in itself, it's already a huge challenge, especially to students who have a big interest in cryptocurrency. There's also the technical part of the business. So technical falls under operations as well. So technology, actually. So technology meaning, how do we manage our scholars? How do we track them? Currently, I'm developing scripts myself and then linking them up to Google Sheets so I can use that to share with the rest of my team. So I'm writing scripts in Python, interacting with the blockchain, interacting with APIs. And that basically is what keeps me busy every single day. Now I've now become a developer. Is there a better way where I don't have to be the one writing code? And if so, what? And if code needs to be written, how can we use code to optimize the business? How do we use code? For example, maybe if we could incorporate AI, if we could incorporate data analysis, by throwing in the performance of all our scholars over many data points, could we then maybe create a model that could predict what future scholars could potentially earn us based on the type of scholars that we bring in, right? So I think this is Salad Ventures is very different from Get Out events. Get Out it's a very traditional business. We sell to HR. We give them a nice pitch. We create a good idea, a good program. We sell it to HR managers around in Singapore. We run the event. We get paid. Straightforward. This maybe not so straightforward. The industry, again, blockchain / cryptocurrency / gaming. I promise you, you're not going to hear a bigger next best thing within the next 1 year, for example. Right. So this combination is immense. It's blowing up. It's crazy. I'm very happy that we've been here for 4 months. Only in 4 months, we've grown so much already. But there are a lot of challenges. And I think a lot of these challenges can be solved with data. I think this is a very data-driven business. How many should we hire? What is the target we should hit? How do we get more profitability? How much of the profit should we put back into scaling, and how much should we sort of draw out to pay ourselves? How do we value the business? There's a lot of numbers involved in this game, in this business. At the same time, there is a lot of human engagement, a lot of culture that's required to manage an organization this size. Right, if we had 1,000 scholars full-time on payroll, we would be as big as a university already, and it would 100% remote. We're starting with the Philippines, so another two more countries that other scholarship programs like YGG have already ventured into are Venezuela and Brazil. Again, don't know why, but they have a couple of hundred scholars in these two countries. So I thought, let's just follow in their footsteps when we want to scale out of the Philippines. But I do not speak Portuguese. I do not speak Spanish. No idea how to scale into those countries, right? Philippines, great, but I don't know how to go into South America or Latin America. So I think those are also very cultural type of challenges that I would have no idea where to start. How do I manage? I can't even manage one, let's say, Venezuelan virtual assistant. How do I manage 100 of them, 50 of them? It's hard. But proven that that is another country that we have to seriously look at, because the biggest player in what we're doing is already there. So when we get there, how do we manage this? Should we work with a local partner? Should we hire a local manager? Again, these are many people management, many organizational challenges, problems that we will face as we scale. And then finally, I guess the last question is, what do we do when we scale? Do we sell? And if we do, who do we sell to? I believe if we build a company and you build it to sell, it sort of makes the business more profitable, obviously more valuable, but overall a lot more profitable as well. So how do we build Salad Ventures to sell? And then at the end of, let's say, a year, 2 years, 3 years, should we sell? Who should we be looking at to sell to? So those are exit problems, right? Or exit questions that we eventually would face in the future. And these are questions that, because of the nature of crypto, everything moves so quickly. We can't wait till a year later before we start to decide, should we be selling or not. I think it is paramount that we decide today. If we get to a certain valuation and we've made this amount of money and blah, 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 certain terms have been met, then we sell. If not, we don't, and then we hold on to it, till when. So I think these are questions that this is going to be a very big challenge. I see the way teams can work on this is, I think teams can pick different parts of this entire challenge to work on and go a bit deeper, rather than just keep touching on the surface, because every single circle that I've described in terms of either operations or scalability, or people management or people organization or risk management, every single point can be delved in very deeply, because this is just so big and so complicated. Of course, more adventurous teams can certainly touch on everything and hopefully produce a more holistic report. But I think if teams find it difficult to cover so many different parts of this challenge in the given amount of time, I would be very happy to also look at reports that specifically cover one or two parts, because obviously, as the entire X Culture organization, we could then combine reports and form a stronger and a better one. Yeah, I think I've covered pretty much what I can.
Yeah, it seems like we have some questions here. So Dhruv, I don't know if you want to go ahead, Ken, if you want to read those questions. So, but Felix, I have a question that is perhaps, on behalf of the students. Is there a way for our students somehow to get more engaged with the company during this period? I mean, can they sign up to be like volunteer scholars or something like that? Like if they wanted to sample it from the inside, like is the system even set up to offer that option? Or maybe in some other way to sort of become your like temporary like intern or employee, or, if they really wanted to understand how it works, is it possible? Is it feasible? I'm just curious.
Yeah, it is possible. Maybe if you could allow me to share screen, I'll very, very quickly share the Discord server. And
what's the settings? Yeah, so let me make you co-host.
Yeah, just quickly.
Yeah, here we go.
Okay, great, got it. Okay, so just a quick screen share. I think if the students want to sort of explore and see what's going on, this is our private Discord server. Um, and we have this room called the waiting room, where basically anybody who applies and passes our application gets put in. Right now, there are 45 people online in the waiting room and 249 offline. So we basically have a waiting list of 294 scholars who have all passed our requirements. I think it would be very, very interesting for students to sort of just hang in this room and look at how they interact. They could also look at these pinned messages that I've pinned from a while ago in July. Certain house rules that I've set for people who are here. So I think this would help them sort of form an opinion of how I think with regard to this entire business. There is also an announcement channel for waiting room. So you see every week we announce batch 8, we're onboarding 12 scholars, then we get reactions. After that, we're going to then, we may be able to launch more teams for batch 8. So now we say 11 scholars, 11 scholars, 11 scholars. And then later on, we added 11 more to batch 8. So batch 8, we onboarded 22. So when they're added to this Discord server, they could, it's going to take them weeks to read through every single thing, but they would very, very quickly be able to understand what we do. So this is for people in the waiting room. What I can do is I can create a specific role for X-Culture students once we sort of can gather and identify who they are, for them to also access the parts of the server where only scholars get access to. So we have this channel called the Section Commander HQ, SecCom. So these are scholars whom I have promoted to be section leaders, section commanders. And every section have got their own channels, which is the responsibility of the section commander. Scrolling up, you would then see, obviously screenshots of their current performance, and you look at, the problems that they face. Most of the time, it's almost always problems. But in the problems, then you get to understand the entire nature of this business. The reason why they face all these problems is because they're super stressed out a lot of times when they're not able to hit the 200 SRP. Obviously, because we are offering them a very, very good salary to hit the targets. And that's why, and one reason that I found, one problem that we faced was Captain Aqua is Wesley, my partner, is, when we had 1 or 2 batches, 20, 30 scholars, he could very easily manage them. And then now we've got, I don't know, like 100 and 100. So there's no chance we'll be able to do that. That's why we launched the Top Scholars Club. But yeah, I'll be very happy to add X-Culture students. So if you see, when you join the server, individuals are given roles. Depending on the roles that they're given, they would then have access to certain channels and access, and obviously don't have access to other channels. I could create a specific role for X-Culture students and give them access to effectively all the channels on the server. But they would still have to do their homework to sort of read through everything and to try and understand the entire process. I think there is one sort of OJT. They don't need to be doing anything, but just by observing would entirely allow them to understand the entire business. And then I think when they have questions, they could then compile those questions, perhaps with screenshots, send them to Do for Kin, who could then compile and then send it to me. Yeah.
Let's see if anyone expresses interest. And so students, those watching now or who will be watching the recording, perhaps maybe inform us if you would like to give it a try, and then we'll see how we can make it happen. So, Drew, I see there are a bunch of questions that you signed up to ask, so please go ahead.
Yeah, so there's a question on what will be Scalaventure's unique selling point as opposed to other companies that sponsor NFT gaming scholars like YGG?
Yeah, so we ask ourselves this question every single day. I do. I think it depends on who we are selling to at that point in time. If we are selling to scholars, then our selling point, or if we are selling to attract more scholars or attract better scholars to join us as opposed to joining YGG, then our selling point is we give very, very good hands-on training. We give a lot of support. And we give very strong XC teams to start. Companies like or guilds or like YGG, because they're so big, it is impossible for them to give good XCs to every single team, because good XCs are very expensive. We, on the other hand, keep our team small. We have 100, they've got 4,500. We can afford to make every team a good one. So there are two pillars that we offer to scholars. Number one, we start them off on the right foot by giving them good teams, which means they play shorter hours per day in order to hit their daily targets. Obviously, with weaker teams, you got to play more. So you spend more time, you waste more time. So strong teams as a starting foundation. Second pillar in our foundation is we give training and we give support. Every scholar who comes, who is onboarded as a scholar with Salad Ventures, joins a 6-day Salad University period. During Salad University, it's one-on-one time or one-to-many time with Wesley and myself on a Zoom call like this. And Wes then goes through the mechanics of the game on day 1, day 2, day 3, until day 6. The scholars go ahead and play. They share the recordings back to Wes. Wes then reviews the recordings again every single day. No team in this world provides this level of hands-on training and hands-on review before onboarding fully every single scholar. And obviously the third thing that we have is a community. I've showed you a Discord. All of these guilds or all of these teams have their own Discord servers. But most of the time, if you can probably try and find some of these and hop on as well as a guest user. You don't get a lot of value as a scholar on those Discord channels, because they're typically just letting scholars talk to scholars, and it's a very flat organization that they mostly have. For us, because I'm a very Singaporean, I have taken a leaf of the army, the Singapore Army book, which is why we call them section commanders. And then we also have a very long chain of command that we intend to promote certain scholars too. As they get promoted, they get paid more. We have offered, so right now we have 2 full-time HR guys on our team, a HR generalist and HR business partner. The HR generalist we hired from an online job portal. The HR business partner is actually a scholar from batch number 3. So in the 3rd week or 4th week, I think, she joined us. I was reading the Discord channel and I realized that she's actually, she's been doing HR for 5 years, young girl. So I reached out to her and I said, we're hiring and I would like to hire internally and basically offer you a full-time contract, obviously with a much higher pay. And so we're offering jobs, full-time jobs to our scholars as well. So they start off as scholars, and the better ones or the more suitable ones eventually end up with very, very good jobs working for a company based out of Singapore. That is when we sell to a scholar. If we're selling to an investor, then the answer is even more straightforward. The answer is we start a business. Everybody starts a business to earn money, even if it is a business for good, right? Because if I don't earn money, I can't do much good. The more money I earn, the more good I can do. How do I earn more money? Generally you'd say just get more scholars, right? So you raise money, hire more scholars, scale more, scale faster, keep hiring scholars. The more scholars you have, the more profitable you become as a business, right? Correct. But that's not my strategy. My strategy is to hire as little scholars as possible, but make as much as possible. So I am not looking at, for example, YGG has a daily average SLP of about 100 SLP per day per scholar, based on the white papers that they share publicly. You can sort of do some reverse calculations. Another company called Avocado Guild, I think, based out of Australia, has got 135 SLP target per day for their scholars. Salad Ventures, our target is 200 per day. So for every scholar that we have, in order for YGG to make the same amount of money that we make, they need to have 2 scholars. So they grow to, let's say, 4,000 scholars today. In order for us to match their valuation, match their profitability, we only need 2,000 scholars. 2,000 scholars means 2,000 less problems, 2,000 less headaches, 2,000 less contracts to send, 2,000 less payments to make every week, 2,000 less everything. Yeah. So if an investor says, why should I invest in you versus, well, they wouldn't invest in YGG because an investor who's looking at investing in YGG will not look at investing in Salad Ventures because we're still very, very small. But they may look at investing in another small team who has deployed an exact same strategy as YGG. I would say that we stand a much better chance of raising these investments because we're better operators and our strategy is completely different. We do not want to have a lot of scholars. That's why what we do is sometimes we don't onboard scholars certain weeks, but we use the resource to upgrade the axes of our existing scholars to help them hit the 200, to help them get more SLP. You see, so I would prefer to have less scholars and more, but better teams and better trained scholars. So I said this, I gave this analogy earlier, I think yesterday. I said, I'm not looking to build a communist army. I'm looking to build a Marines. We don't need that many soldiers who don't know what's going on and who's running all over the place and just keep throwing numbers at problems. We are building a battalion and a team of sharpshooters, a team of Marines who are trained very well and who are equipped very well and who are constantly upgraded as they go along. This allows us then to build relationships and build more loyalty. But at the same time, I just also found out that the attrition rate for people who join the Marines is 50% for males and 25% for females, which is very close to the number of scholars who have dropped out from Salad Ventures so far in the last 8 weeks or so, 25% roughly. So I would say the selling point to an investor is we're not playing a numbers game. We are playing a quality game here, even in just a single game called Axie Infinity. I actually can see the Q&A, so I'm going to just hop to the questions to address them. Would we be considered competing in the same industry with esports companies or solely with companies such as YGG that operates with the scholars business model? What are we competing for? We're competing for two things. Number one, we're competing for scholars. Number two, we're competing for obviously investments or capital. Would we be competing with the traditional esports businesses? I think that is a straight up no, because people who join us as scholars would not be professional esports players who play Dota or play, Counter-Strike. They would primarily be ordinary people who want to make money and change their lives by playing games. For investments, will we be competing in the same industry? Again, the answer is no. A very large VC firm, I've got a call with a very large, probably the largest or oldest, one of the oldest VC firms based in the US. They have a long time ago, many years ago, they've already invested in a gaming company, a game producer company. They've also invested in an esports team / esports events organizing company. But we're still going to hop onto a Zoom call with them next week. And that is because even though in this generic industry called gaming, there are a lot of verticals, and most good investors tend to diversify across verticals as well in one industry. The next question, is Salad Ventures considering entering into a new blockchain game in the future? For sure, 100%. So YGG currently have they're in 4 games. I have looked at the other 3 games that we're not in. I'm not sure if we're planning to enter the same games, but yeah, the answer is yes. In the future, how far in the future? Well, I guess it depends how much resources we are able to raise in order to invest in a second game. So yeah, it's yes, but don't know when. About a section of valuing the venture, would the requirement be to use arbitrary numbers to give a rough estimation of how the valuation should be calculated? My advice is to is to do more research, start with YGG, and then start digging outwards to see if there are other companies who have raised some kind of investment in this industry, and try and gauge a valuation from there. For example, and this is a bad example, but it gives you an idea. If YGG has 4,000 scholars today, and we have 100 scholars today, they are 40 times bigger than us today, based on scholars, number of scholars alone. And then if you look back at the amount of money that YGG has raised, you look at the token, the YGG token that they have listed. And then you go to CoinMarketCap to look at the value of the YGG token today. You can get a rough valuation of YGG today, roughly. So let's say the valuation was $600 million. We are 40 times smaller, so 600 million divided by 40. Salad Ventures could be worth $15 million today, based on that theory, right? But valuation is, again, how long is a piece of string? At the end of the day, it's really how you justify that valuation, and whether or not, and what is the narrative around that valuation? How do you, right? So we're 40 times smaller today, but as YGG grows, we're growing as well. Are we growing faster? Are we going slower? Does it really matter if our scholars are generating more SLP, therefore more revenue, therefore more profits than their scholars? What is our churn? I think there are a lot of questions to ask before you try and put together a valuation. But I would start from there. I think that's all the questions that we have right now.
Yes,
Yeah.
and we do have one more question from Nikki. She will be the client expert, and she's from Singapore, so that you can also be in touch with her at your convenience. So Nikki, do you have any questions that is not yet answered?
Hi, so I know it's very late in Singapore, so I'll try to wrap up my questions.
Midnight, very late.
So I noticed that you are very specific in choosing your scholars, and you're really hung up on the HR part of your business. So I just like to ask, I understand the reasons why you choose the Philippines to kind of get your scholars, but what are the most important qualities that you're looking for in specific scholars? Because if you were to venture out into different markets to look at different scholars, what will you look for? And will you consider like Malaysia, for example, who's also very into gaming, or consider like YGG going into Brazil, even though you need to learn their language, for example?
There's actually an economic answer to this question. What we're looking for qualitatively, it's very difficult to describe. Initially, I was doing a lot of tests. Do I hire people with higher IQ or lower IQ? Do I onboard them as a batch of really, really smart people, or another batch of very mixed people? I've come to the conclusion after 100 scholars that the IQ has no direct relation or correlation to their performance. Performance is the keyword. So there are certain rules to this game. For example, on average, a good scholar can probably generate up to 250 SLPs per day. No matter how good he is, he will not be able to generate 1,000 SLPs per day. That's that's one of the basic rules of this game. Obviously, there has to be limitations. Otherwise, there is no value to the token called SLP. All right. So we can do sort of like a reverse calculation. If a scholar can, let's say, 200 SLPs per day, and I did that calculation earlier, right? 200 times 14 cents, 13 cents now. Damn. Anyway, 100 times, let's say 13 cents. They're making $26 a day for the company. And how much should the company be making out of this $26 that they earn for us, right? I don't know. I think the figure is let's say half, but you or another team may think that the figure should be more than half because we're taking the risk, we're investing all this money. So I would go from that angle. I would say if I think it's half, okay, then we're going to be paying $13 per day. How many hours does it take for them to earn this number of SLPs? Probably about 3 to 4 hours per day. So it was $13, per day of salary divided by, let's say, 4 hours per day of work playing, i.e. playing game on a phone, right? The hourly rate is about $3.25 per hour. Which country in the world will be happy, will kill to get a job that they can sort of play games on a phone and be paid $3.25 per hour? That's where I would start. I think this answer would, with this question, then obviously Philippines, Brazil, Venezuela pops up. Maybe Poland, maybe some Eastern European countries. I don't know. Would I consider Malaysia? Depends. Malaysia, Malaysia is, it's not like the Philippines where, it's 95% one type or 99% one group of people and then 1%, right? Malaysia is split. It's very diverse, like Singapore. So it's very difficult to gauge. What are we looking for? Well, I think that is the first criteria that you need to look out for, right? If we're paying this amount per hour, basically some very simple, cheap calculation, who will take this job? Having said that, out of the 100 scholars, we have one Singaporean scholar. Weird, I know. So I asked him, why are you doing this? You have a job, obviously. So his answer to me was a side hustle. So then the next question that I asked him was, why don't you just save some money and buy your own XE team? As a Singaporean, you probably should be able to do that. And then he said, I don't know what team to buy and I don't know how to do it. I don't know how to play. So I'm happy to, just join you, make this extra $3.25 or whatever per hour. He learns the skill, he gets something out of it, and then after that, if he wants to leave, he leaves. But as long as he meets our daily targets and we pay him what we promised to pay, we are already making a profit. Happy to do that 100 times with 100 different people if we have a process that sort of systemizes this whole thing. So the criteria mainly is got to look at a country or a city in a country who's willing to accept these kind of wage in return for playing games on a mobile phone or a laptop. So there are not that many countries around the world that you can look at already just by that. And then I think in terms of the individual, again, I've tested a lot of things, IQ level, personalities. I think it's very difficult to pick the right person based on those type of metrics. I would rather focus on let's pick them if they're reasonably smart, reasonably nice in terms of personality test, get them on board, put them through our training program, and then put them under our section commanders who should then mentor and take care of them, right? So in this case, we have a lower chance of failure. But if you're trying to sort of guess, is a higher IQ better, lower IQ better, the leader personality is better, or the follower personality is better, I've tested that quite a lot. I don't think that works. Hope that helps.
Yeah, it does. All right, thanks.
All
so
right.
my next question will be, I understand that blockchain gaming and dealing with like NFTs, for example, there's very high risk, and even you said that yourself. So I just want to know, like, how do you ensure that the risk will be taken by your company instead of like your scholars or your investors?
Well, if the investors invest in a company, then they're taking whatever risk that I'm taking, right? The scholars don't take any, technically, they don't take any risk. They have no exposure to crypto, to the price of cryptocurrency because they are paid a salary. They're literally just, I'm going to hire you, I'm giving you a contract, and as long as you meet my KPIs, I will pay you your salary. That's it. That's all they need to know. They just need to meet the KPI by playing the game and getting the daily targets. The exposure to the basically the price fluctuation of cryptocurrency is entirely the company's exposure. Then of course the investor would. So an investor who is anti-crypto will never even bother about what we're doing. Never. The type of investors who would want to sort of who would be interested in investing in a business like ours must already be a crypto investor or an investor who already has some kind of exposure into the blockchain or the cryptocurrency, specifically the cryptocurrency world. Another type of investor would be a type of investor who don't have an existing exposure, but is looking to get exposure into cryptocurrency, but don't want to just, let's say, put in $1 million to buy Bitcoin or $1 million to buy Ethereum. They much rather say, put in $1 million to buy shares in this business called Scalability Ventures. Indirectly, they have exposure to Ethereum primarily, but they are offsetting their risk by multiplying the value of our assets. So for example, if they invested let's say $1 million in Ethereum, let's say 5-6 months ago, they would probably have lost at least half of it by now. But if they've invested $1 million with Scalability Ventures half a year ago, 6 months ago, or 5 months ago at the exact same time, they would have made maybe a 70%, 80% profit by now. They would end up with more Ethereum than they started if they had invested that with us. Yeah. So there are, I think, many different types of investors that we would eventually be looking at. But certainly the ones who say, blockchain, crypto, this is so confusing, I need you to explain it to me, that is entirely, for sure, not the type of investor that will be interested in what we're doing.
I see. Yeah.
Great. Nikki, do you have any more questions?
No. Thank you for your time.
All right. Thank you so much, Felix, for joining. Thank you, Nikki, Suzanne, for joining. And thank you, everyone, for being here and asking the questions directly to Felix. So I'm going to stop the recording, or maybe end the meeting. And then we will have a separate Q&A session if required in the middle of the semester, and we will follow up with you for that.
Okay, great. Thanks very much for having me, guys. Let me know if you need anything else.
Sure. Bye-bye. Take care.
Take
All
care.
the best, everyone, for the competition.
Okay,
Good luck,
bye.
guys.
Thank you for the session.